So to deliver projects or change, we have two sides or two ends of a spectrum. On one side, we have the predictive approach, or also known as the waterfall. And on the other, we have agile, which is built to have a product development type of mentality. I want to share with you a way in the middle that you can approach this, because the challenge on agile is a lot of leaders say, hey, great, there's work that's going on, but do I know it's the right work? The challenge on predictive has been, by the time we finally deliver the change, the organization has already moved to another place and that the value is lost. So in the middle is an approach called mission-based teams. And I want to share with you what a mission-based team is, because we've had great success working with customers on this. A mission-based team has a couple of tenets or principles, and I want to share those along with some of the pillars for you to consider as you develop one of those teams. And then lastly, so you have clarity of what they're going to end their change or their efforts with. So it's kind of like a project team, but it's not as formal or rigid as most project teams have become. So a mission-based team has these four sort of key principles. The first is that it's got to be an elite group of people inside your organization who are empowered to make decisions. This helps to cut down that time we call decision latency, of how long it takes to get a decision floated up to leadership and get the response back. The second is the team has to be able to come up with their own way of how they want to manage. You don't say, here's this whole methodology and you must go from A to B to C to D, etc. You let the team decide that, because these are going to be really short bursts of efforts. The third is it has to have a charter with a very tight or small scope of work. So I want you to think, most of our projects that we say is we're going to go and we're going to revise our future state processes, and then we're going to deploy a system, and it's going to take months, if not years, to go through that whole process. Instead, take that, and you'll see down below I've got there, missions are like waypoints. So for those that have played video games, you know a waypoint is that as you go through a particular game, you're going to certain places. Okay, for those who've done Fortnite, you guys know waypoints because that's where you get shot from somebody in the bushes all the time. But waypoints are steps. And the key here is that you have multiple steps to get you to your final outcome. Maybe that outcome is a whole new technology or system, or that outcome is a new call center. But instead of just eating the elephant all in one bite, let's break it into smaller chunks that we call those missions. And each of the missions should have a charter. So in that example I used a moment ago of we're going to do some future state processes, one of those missions may just be define the future state processes. And that's where it ends. It doesn't have to go all the way into selection of a software solution or an RFP. And the last key point here is they have to be short. Missions have a very short time or life cycle. 90 days or less. Sometimes they can only last maybe 2 or 3 days. That's okay as well. Because the key with mission-based team approach is you are delivering constant incremental change that is driving value for your organization. Empowered people, able to make decisions, short time frame, small piece of scope. And the key that comes out of this is you get momentum, because you get quick wins. And as people start seeing accomplishments and wins, and you all know this because the longer the project, the more things you end up doing around your house, the honeydews, because you got to have a sense of accomplishment. And in missions, you're doing small incremental change. So I'm going to give you the 5 parts that when you think about comprising or starting a mission, what do you need? What are the elements? The first is you got to have the mission. The mission goes back to what does success look like? What's the outcome that we're trying to achieve? So if it's the case of business processes, it may be that I want a future state process that I know my business is using, and they're actually already adapting it once they've started deploying those processes. It's not just creating the thing, it's creating the effect of what we're trying to do. The second is, what's the structure? Who needs to be on this mission? You may have core members inside of it that are those empowered leaders who are representing different business departments or functions. And you may have some people around the peripheral that need to at least be reviewers, but don't have to be engaged in the actual design or the problem solving that the mission or the change is creating. Third is cadence. Cadence gets into the team coming up with what's their rhythm? How are they going to communicate? How often are they going to meet? Okay, I've done some missions that literally you met for 30 minutes every Friday by phone or through Skype or one of the other virtual means, and you were done in 3 weeks. It was just a touch point that says, here's what our expectation is. That helps to remove confusion, and it allows you to be able to have a touch point to say, do we need to adapt or adjust where we are in the mission? The fourth is the objectives. Think of the objectives as being like the output, the things that are coming out of this mission. It could be a deliverable, it could be an action, it could be training, whatever that may be. And lastly is the parameters. And the key around the parameters is, as a leader, if you're giving a mission to someone or a team to go after, how far can they go? Maybe they can come up with a recommendation and a plan, but they can't actually approve or implement it. Maybe they can come up with some ideas, but they can't actually spend any money. So the parameters are you as a leader establishing the boundaries in which the mission can operate. And if you're too tight or too rigid in those, then your mission is going to have a lot of challenges. They're going to be coming in asking a lot of questions. If you're too vague or too loose, your risk increases that maybe that change or that mission completes and it didn't hit what you wanted, or it creates disruption in your business, like actually deploying the processes when all you wanted for them to do was to capture those. Now, here's the key part with the mission. So short time frame, you got people that are empowered, you got a very small set of scope that are ultimately those sets of scope can get you to a final strategic outcome. Each mission at the end of the mission is going to make a recommendation to leadership of one of 5 next steps. Here's what those 5 next steps are. And this is very much out of the product development world. The mission could come in and say, at the end of this mission, we did the mission, we resolved, it's not a time to buy software right now, kill the next mission. It could say, we went in, we did the mission, we looked at it, there's a lot of players in this software, it's kind of expensive, so we think we should kind of put it on hold right now until next year. That's the pause. Come out of the mission, you say, yeah, we did the business processes. Based on what we found, we don't need that kind of software we thought we were going to buy. We actually need something different. That's adjust. It means I'm coming out of my mission, and instead of just going right into the next step, like we do so many times, we say, wait a minute, we need to adjust the direction or the strategy of what we're proceeding as opposed to just keeping going on to the next action. And then the last 2, so proceed. Proceed says, we finished the mission, proceed to the next step. We're ready to go. We want to go get requirements now. We've done the processes. Exploit says, we finished the mission. Not only do we want to proceed, but we want to proceed with speed. We want more people. We may want more money. This is a market opportunity. We need to go and exploit it now. So exploit is proceed, but with haste. Now, outside of that mission, at the end of it, what leadership gets is they get a request for decision. Which of these 5 items does leadership agree and support from what the mission's recommended to go next? And here's why this is important. Let's take Agile on one hand. Agile is you keep doing work, but leadership wonders, is it the right work? This creates a decision point that leadership says you're going to pull up and make a recommendation of how we should go, where we should go next, and how we should do things. It also says, I'm not worried about losing all of my money because you're kind of going down this path, but I don't really know if you're spending it the right way. This says, I have a clear understanding of what's coming next, and I can give you a green light to proceed quickly or to proceed to the next step, or I can say stop, and I'm now no longer expending those dollars. So leadership likes this because they get a decision point in the process that they don't typically have in the Agile world. On the predictive side of the house, the waterfall side, as you see so many times, your value or need has shifted by the time you finally deploy. By doing these in less than 90 days, what you're doing is you're bringing change to the business more quickly, which is what they always want. You're doing it incrementally, but you're not doing it haphazardly. You're doing it with a plan towards a strategic outcome.